noon to 1. Learn more online at mwmfinancial.tax.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios. This is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan Proft here. BLM Brandon, mayor of Chicago, at the National Press Club yesterday because he's an important voice on the salient issues of our day. He's a historical figure, don't you know? In the same way that Kamala Harris considered herself a historical figure. He had this to unveil, in general terms, a new and exciting action that the city is allegedly preparing to take with respect to holding ICE responsible criminally for conduct that BLM Brandon finds objectionable, like, enforcing the law.
We are working on additional measures that we believe will make Chicago the first city in the country to be able to effectively hold ICE and Border Patrol officers accountable for criminal misconduct.
I'm looking forward to more details on that. When things got a little bit more relaxed, collegial there at the National Press Club, kicking ideas around, offering historical perspective in a way that only someone with a grasp of history that Brandon Johnson has could do. We've heard this before in Chicago, but he's auditioning it for a national audience.
It's unfortunate that Greg Bavino's, that his legacy will take time for people to understand how nasty of an individual he really is. It's powerful that we have been able to effectively push back at local levels as well as in the courts around Gregory Bavino's activities. His dressing, his whole package, it is so familiar that I believe that it was blinding for some people. That it's clear, there's two things. One, it's clear that the far right in this country, that they have not accepted the results of the Civil War. And that they have longed for a rematch to have a republic that subjugates and subjects individuals to a permanent lower class. And that, again, when we have witnessed the largest upward transfer of wealth in any other time in American history, there's your evidence of the type of stratification that the extreme right in this country prefers.
Right. So Greg Bavino is Bull Connor, is Simon Legree. And I'll tell you, only somebody with a particular handle on history could move past the fact that the Republican Party was founded as an abolitionist party, and the man who presided over the Civil War and instigated it was a Republican president for the purposes of dismantling the institution of slavery. Only somebody with a particular grasp on history could suggest that it is conservatives, even moderate Republicans. Anybody who voted for Trump is the far right, according to Brandon Johnson, of course, and his ilk, wants to relitigate the Civil War. But again, you have to have that unique understanding of Brandon Johnson, of history, that few like Brandon Johnson possess. More on the topic and related matters. Stu Smith joins us, investigative analyst for City Journal. Stu, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Happy to be here. How are you?
Good. I'm sure you're not surprised by those comments from Brandon Johnson. He has been beating the drum against white supremacy, which is around every corner, lurking around every corner. since he was a teachers union apparatchik, and now since he's been mayor, as most of these big blue city mayors do. I mean, this still is the calling card, and they move from domestic policing issues seamlessly to federal immigration law enforcement, as they have over the last several years.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that's interesting about all of this is that, you know, figures like Brandon Johnson and the DSA, you know, they like to be the critics, but they have a very tough time being in power and effectively governing without being able to blame everyone else in the world. And Johnson is only popular with this very fringe group of what I call activist bullies. And without that activist bully support, you know, I don't know where he would be.
He may be down with his former Chicago Teachers Union comrades, trying to help, trying to bring the best practices of the Maduro regime when it comes to K through 12 education back to Chicago, which actually it turns out they've done a pretty good job. Remember, his fellow travelers in that union went down to Caracas under Maduro, looked at the school system, praised the school system, very excited to bring all that they learned back to Chicago. And we just see this play out again and again and again, where these sort of activist bullies, as you call them, are flacking for totalitarians in our midst as well as around the world.
Yeah, I mean, this is the same person who, you know, spoke at a conference at the Chicago Teachers Union Hall, where they spent half the conference praising armed resistance in Gaza and the Philippines, you know, praised fighting ICE officers in the streets. When he took the stage, some people even rushed the stage to protest him. So, I mean, this is a crowd that is volatile, that wants to fight, that has this skewed view of the world, where the people who are what I would call global villains are the good guys, and anyone who is trying to, you know, just be a normal person and get by is, you know, evil. I mean, it's such a insane reality to have, but you know, this is the reality that Brandon Johnson pushes and thinks everyone should have. I mean, it is insane.
Give us some more color on some of these organizations that you've written about, including, for example, the People's Forum.
Yeah, so there's this network of people. Some people call it the Singham Network, and what you have
the billionaire.
are... Yes, Neville Roy Singham, ThoughtWorks, he sells it, and he's a tech guy, and so now he uses all this money to fund all these various groups all across the country. And so some of the ones that are really closely allied and you know, working hard to praise Brandon Johnson are going to be groups like Freedom Road Socialist Organization, which, you know, evolved out of the 80s from Maoist groups. You have USPCN, the U.S. Palestinian Community Network, Arab American Action Network. You even have groups like Bayan, which is a Filipino communist organization, which is very actually closely allied with the Communist Party of the Philippines, which is a foreign terrorist organization that has been designated for decades now. And another one that's kind of interesting that some people might remember is Students for a Democratic Society. And that is actually a skin suit of a former organization that Freedom Road rebooted in 2006, knowing that people would recognize the name from
the 60s.
Weather Underground days.
Yeah. And so you know, Kash Patel earlier this week said, we are following the money and the, you know, organizational footprints in places like Minneapolis of people that are organizing, professional agitators, to break the law, to assault law enforcement officers, to impede law enforcement operations. We are doing this. And he said, I can't tell you anything yet, but we're doing it. So the networks, the organizations and the networks that you've investigated, do you think that they are integral to what's happening with respect to ICE and CBP operations across the country? And if so, how difficult is it to track and put together the case against them if they are conspiring to, break federal law? I think there's some frustration that it seems like we've heard about some of these groups. You're maybe introducing some new ones to people, but we've heard about these for a long time. There's been a lot of talk about following the money. I mean, how really sophisticated are they, such that you can't, all the resources of the FBI and the federal government, and you can't seem to put together the complete picture and hold people responsible if they are breaking federal law?
I am a massive advocate for expanding the IRS. I know people hear that and they freak out, but we're talking about expanding the exempted organizations division. So that would be specifically looking at nonprofits who are abusing nonprofit status to foment chaos across the country. And so you always see the nonprofit industry grow, like have massive growth over the years. But that division of the IRS, recently has lost 25% of their staff. So you have a staff that can't even keep up with the growth, and all they do is they're very reactive. They're not proactively looking at these groups and saying, hey, they say their purpose is this, but they are causing chaos in the streets. Like a good example in Minneapolis right now is the Sunrise Movement, which was a green organization that's now devoted itself to fighting fascism because their argument here is that we can't be environmentally friendly until Trump's gone. And so then you have, you will have them on live webinars saying, we're doing these illegal wake up night calls. And we know that once the police gives us a warning, we leave and we won't get arrested, but we've already done the damage. So, and a nonprofit can't do that. But it's not like you have this division at the IRS saying, even writing a letter warning them. You don't even have anything like that. So that's kind of where I say, hey, we need to expand this division of the IRS. We're not going after individual people who are working hard. We're going after these nonprofits who are abusing the system. And whenever you hear of any of these groups, people can look up their tax forms, the 990s.
Yeah.
You can look at them and you can see the details of who's on the board, how much money they have, and even sometimes they have these ridiculous purposes, community movement builders just says their purpose is to organize and educate. That shouldn't be enough to get you nonprofit status. I'm sorry. You have to give us more details. So it's stuff like that where it's just vague and no one's really having any sort of oversight on these groups.
Well, and something else too, like the SJP chapters that were discussed when there were campus takeovers by pro-Hamas students and probably professional agitators as well, and that the foreign money that comes into these organizations at the grassroots level as well. I mean, we had Scott Bessent beating the drums a couple of weeks ago about following the money that was being exported from Tehran by the mullahs to make sure they had money and a safe place to land if they needed to abdicate. And he said, we're working through the global banking system to follow the money. They're not going to have access to it, and so on and so forth. I mean, if there are organizations that, Iranian mullahs are running money through to get to at professional agitator groups in the United States, I don't think that's particularly far-fetched. Then it seems to me that's something else that Treasury, the combination of Treasury, DOJ, FBI should be on. And we hear some sort of general talk in that direction, but we don't really see much in the way of results. Yeah,
one example I can give you in Virginia is that before he was made administrator of the DEA, Terry Cole was testifying that you had dark money going back and forth between Hamas and Hezbollah to SJP and AMP, American Muslims for Palestine. And he testified about this. And then you have, Virginia's AG at the time, Jason Miyares, tried to go after AMP to get some details related to that. And that got, shut down by a judge. So, that's kind of where one of those hills that you get to where it's like, okay, you have it, and then you have like an activist judge, intervene, and so then you're back to square one. But yeah, there are a lot of issues with that. You have lots of issues with certainly, the universities having these like centers that effectively work as like, radical activists, like factories pretty much. So there's a lot of things that we could do so much better on, but
yeah, and even too, like the whole sort of, politicians in robes, I understand that's a problem, but even bringing this to light and putting this out in the public domain, sort of citizen journalist style, just, presenting the evidence. Now, I can't get this to past this, Obama appointed judge or whoever, but I can still put this out into the public domain for people to see. And, you make your own decisions. And it also puts pressure on those who do have enforcement power to perhaps do more than they're doing. It just seems like a lot of this is always sort of cast in the shadows of the legal process or general ongoing investigations, and not enough of it comes to light. There's, good reporting that's done by you and others that connects some of the dots, but you don't have the power to gather the information that federal law enforcement agencies do. And if you're running into obstructionist judges, then put the information out for public consumption. It's stuff that the American public has a right to know.
Yeah, I did get the FOIAs back for that AMP case this week, but so I'm going through that now. But yeah, like with the University of Washington, they had this student group do $1 million worth of damage to the building, to a new building. They were just allowed back on campus this week, and yesterday they were passing out Yahya Sinwar pamphlets about Hamas. First day back on campus, and something like that I see. Yeah, old habits are. But it's something like that where it's just like I see that and I'm like, Linda McMahon, this is a slam dunk. Please do something. This is. And it is baffling, but sometimes these things are just slow. Like a good example of that is the Alliance for Global Justice. During 2020, they put over $50 million into the streets with various activist orgs, and the ball is finally rolling on that just now. So some of these things do take time, but yeah, it's incredibly frustrating. But I do think, with more citizen journalism and just, people exposing this stuff, maybe we can kind of get that machine optimized so we can do a much better job about being proactive opposed to being reactive when we kind of realize who these major players are, like the Singham Network.
Stu Smith, investigative analyst at City Journal. You can follow him. Very nicely done here. Wonderful Phil Collins. The Stu Studio is his handle on X. Very good. Stu Smith, thanks so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
And he joined us at Chicago's Morning Answer.
This is the morning show more Chicago radio listeners are choosing. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Signature Bank is Chicago's fastest growing independently owned business bank, a bank where relationships still matter. Signature Bank knows your name and your story. I'm Dan Proft, and I know this because Signature Bank is my business bank.
Anthony and John here from Bionic Auto Parts, proud clients of Signature Bank. We deliver high-quality, recycled and remanufactured auto parts to Chicago and Milwaukee. Our mission is simple: provide parts safely, reliably, with great customer satisfaction.
We process